Hi everyone, and this week we are reading chapter 2 of our textbook called CMC, Diffusion, and Social Theory. In this short video, I'm going to review some of the key terms and theories that you'll find throughout chapter 2. So some of the key terms are CMC, online identity, SNS, and F2F. So let's start with CMC. CMC stands for Computer Mediated Communication. And it's exactly how it sounds. This has to do with all types of communication via computers. And as you can read in chapter 2, this started in the 60s and 70s with computers used in the U.S. military to communicate with each other. And it quickly grew into emails and the World Wide Web and online servers to allow people to connect from their personal computers. And so with this type of communication, a whole new field of study arose to identify what drives people's behaviors online and how they communicate. And one of the aspects that's studied is called online identity. So we each have an identity, and most of the time we think of that identity as being our person. But online, we can take on another identity. So we each have our own online identity. And some people carefully regulate their online identity. They engage in what's called impression management. And that means that we're attempting to create an impression that others have of us by tailoring our identity online, tailoring our presence. So SNS equals social networking sites, and those are the sites that we are all familiar with. Those have an interesting relationship to the idea of social media. So social media is a larger, broader term that includes many different platforms, including blogs, news, wikis, product reviews, social networking, photo sharing, music listening, video sharing, games, and more. And you can see those on page 30 of your book. So social networking sites are one type of social media that allow us to connect. And the last one is face-to-face communication. And this terminology came about because there was a need to make a distinction between CMC, computer-mediated communication, and interpersonal communication, which is usually in person or face-to-face. So let's go on to the diffusion of innovations theory. This is a theory that discusses how new ideas are spread throughout a society. So whenever something new comes out, let's take, for example, the cell phone. When the cell phone first came out, there were a group of people who were the innovators. In other words, the very first people to say, hey, I like this technology, I'm going to use it. And those people were the opinion leaders, the influencers. And they went ahead and picked up their cell phones really early and started using them right away. And this is one category of the population, about 2.5%. Then you have the early adopters, those who follow the innovators, who follow the opinion leaders pretty early on and end up adopting the technology that's at hand. You have what's called a tipping point, which means that after that, you're pretty assured that the technology or the idea is going to eventually spread into the rest of society. So you have the category of the early majority, so it's becoming mainstream at this point. So cell phones are probably being adopted by a lot of people. You've got almost 50%, if not more, of the population by the time you get the early majority category. Then you have the late majority, people who may be reluctant to, pick up a cell phone and start using it. And then finally, you have the laggards, the people who are the very last holdouts that don't want to have a cell phone, maybe still enjoy picking up that house phone and having an answering machine as opposed to a voicemail. So Diffusion of Innovations covers these 5 categories. It just tells us how ideas spread throughout a community or a society. There are a couple more theories that I'd like to quickly explain. The uses and gratifications theory. That basically tells us how and why people engage in certain media. So, in other words, why do people use certain media? Why do I use Facebook, for example? And gratifications, what do I get out of Facebook? And so this theory predicts that people are going to engage in media as long as they're getting something out of it and that they're being gratified by their use of it. So that's what this theory would predict. And lastly, the spiral of silence theory says that as people become, if a person is in the minority opinion, that eventually the majority opinion is going to grow and grow, and the people who are in the minority opinion are going to be silenced, are going to be shut down, are going to be afraid to voice their opinions about whatever subject it is, therefore leading to a spiral of silence. Okay, so that's all for our overview of Chapter 2.